Hello. It's time. It's time to talk Madame Web. Madame Web, let's go! She's quite beautiful. That's right. I saw Madame Web. This is the first cape shit movie I've watched in a while. And, oh boy, emphasis on the shit. But in a good way. I'm sure by this point you've heard Madame Web. First, you can consider this a sort of unofficial fear video, fear podcast, because I did see it with Kirk. I saw it with a whole group of people. Kirk and I are just busy and it's not as easy for us to meet up as it once was. But I want to talk about Madame Web, and I want to talk about it before I forget it. So this review may be structured a little bit more like how Kirk and I would talk about bad movies on the Fearcast, because really this movie is prime peak Fearcast material, honestly. Like, there's a decent chance that if we do end up talking about this on an actual Fearcast at some point. Because it is a movie. It is a movie that is made. It is one of the movies that was made, but unlike Morbius, this one's actually worth talking about in detail. Like, actually talking about the movie, not just saying it's Morbin time. Madame Web, I'm gonna drop this. Madame Web is probably the most hilarious mess of a movie to be made since Cats. I have not seen something so bad in the movie theater. There has not been such a colossal filmmaking failure since Cats 2019, which is a fear-inducing sentence, because that movie was right before COVID. You know, that movie was like an omen. I like to joke that movie was an omen of bad things to come. Hopefully Madame Web is not the same. Hopefully her web of seeing the future does not spell the same kind of doom for us all. Her web connects them all. So this movie is... So the premise... I'll start with the premise, because I actually think the premise is kind of solid. Like, it's a good starting point for a movie to be made. So the premise is Dakota Johnson plays a woman named Cassandra Webb, and she starts getting visions of the future after a car accident, and that's her power, standard superhero stuff. She has to use these visions to try and protect 3 girls who are being hunted down by a villain who wants to kill them before they kill him in the future. So he's also having future visions, prophetic dreams. It's a good theming. It's a good, consistent theming. I've heard that in earlier scripts, because this movie went through script rewrite hell, and you can tell. You can tell this went through production hell for many reasons. But one of them is the script. Originally, apparently, the idea was that she's, instead of protecting 3 girls who are one day going to become superheroes, she's protecting Peter Parker's mother from a villain who wants to kill her so that Peter Parker won't be born. This would have been a far more interesting way to do this premise. It would have been more focused on her saving one person. It would have had more... You would have had to establish less characters. The villain's motivations would have made more sense. It just would have been more clean. Did they do this? No. However, for some reason in this change, while they didn't do this, they still kept in the characters of Mary Parker and Ben. Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben is like Cassandra Webb's best friend. And they never like directly... It's weird. They lean into this as a subplot. There's a whole subplot involving Ben and his sister Mary, who is having a baby that we don't know the name of. And then at one point, Ben is watching the girls, and then Mary is going to have the baby. And so they're going to the hospital to deliver the baby that is unnamed. And it's they're just subtle enough with it that it's like, why did you bother? But also, the subplot is, it's in this weird realm where it's not in your face enough to be like a Marvel setup cameo thing, but it's still such a part of there's still a whole B plot around it. It just makes you question, why are we doing this? Why is this subplot here if we're gonna like half-ass it? If we're not gonna commit to it? If we're not gonna name drop the baby Peter? It's goofy, just like everything else in this movie. Adam Scott plays Uncle Ben. He probably gives the best performance in the movie, and by that I say that his performance is mid. This script is awful, and I'm not sure how you could make it work. So many of the lines are just some of the clunkiest exposition imaginable. Okay, we're gonna go Fear style, break this down plot beat by plot beat. So the first thing that happens in this movie is a flashback sequence. It's Cassandra Webb's mom, and if you've seen the trailer, you've heard the line, he was with my mom when she was researching spiders in the Amazon before she died. Jesus Christ, it really is a mouthful saying it all out loud. It's not in, that line isn't actually in the movie, oddly enough. Not in full form. My theory is that, because at one point she says, like, he was with my mom in the Amazon, or something like that. So my theory is that they actually cut the back half of the line, because this movie is an editing night. This is one of the worst edited films. I can't even call it a film. This is one of the worst edited movies I have ever seen. There are student films with better editing. Many student films. My student film had better editing. This is like a how-to... There's many things that are bad about this movie, but the editing is one of the biggest. Like, it is edited so badly that it is like... They have to be trying to hide something. It feels like they're cobbling together unfinished footage. That is how bad the editing is. So it would not surprise me if that line from the trailer, that mouthful about the spiders, was in the movie and the editors just chopped it in half after the trailer reactions were trashing on it. But anyway, the movie starts out with the mom in the Amazon researching spiders before she dies. And with her is a man who will be the villain. Ezekiel Sims. He's the other worst thing about this movie. He is probably the worst supervillain ever. So he kills Cassandra Webb's mother because she finds a superpower spider, and then he shoots her, and then she gets rescued by these native tribal spider people. I wish I was joking, except I don't, because this is actually hilarious. I was laughing my ass off in the theater in the first 5 minutes, just like, what is going on right now? These spiders, not spiders, these people in like Spider-Man-ish suits, but like made of like vines. And there's this horrible shot of them jumping through the trees. It has to be seen to be believed. And they're unable to save the mother, but they are able to save her baby, Cassandra Webb. Madame Webb. She's quite beautiful. And so that's the opening of the movie. The setup is hilarious and strange, and they somehow made Spider-Man cultural appropriation. It's like, oh yeah, this spider power, this spider suit thing, this is from a native tribe. And it's funny because later, one of those tribe guys comes back later on in the movie, and he's not dressed in that outfit anymore. It feels like somebody said halfway through production, hey, this is kind of sus. But they didn't want to they didn't want to reshoot. Apparently this movie had reshoots. I find it hard to believe because it feels like they were doing everything in their power to avoid reshoots. Like I said, the editing looks like they're cobbling together something that is unfinished. So then that brilliant opening sequence happened, and then the movie lulls for a bit. I will say, for a bat, this is like the least boring bad movie ever. If Morbius was all boredom all the time except that one Matt Smith scene, this movie, I was never bored. I was never bored for more than a minute or two before some insane thing would happen, or some awful line of dialogue would be delivered, or some crazy cut. Like, something bizarre and fascinating was always happening. There was never too long without a bizarre, fascinating incident. So you're introduced to Cassandra Webb. She has some clunky-ass dialogue with her friend Ben. They're both EMTs. A mission goes wrong and she's rescuing somebody from the EMTs. And this is as good a time as any to talk about the god-awful ADR, because I kind of noticed it in the opening scene with the villain, but not that much. I just thought his delivery was off, and his delivery was bad. It's not just... But, I really noticed it when she is going to the truck to rescue this person who's trapped in their truck that's falling off a cliff, and that's how she ends up stuck in the truck and falls in the ocean. They have, like, ADR of him being like, help me, help me. It sounded so bad. Like bad anime dub level, this is not in the space. And the movie is full of that. And for all characters. Any time that a reverse shot is done, and the person speaking has the reverse shot on them, they're probably ADR'd. And you can tell. It'll happen mid-line, and you can tell every time. They didn't make any attempt to make it sound like it was, like, in the space. It's impossible to describe. I've never seen anything like it in a movie. And nowhere is that more prevalent than the villain, Ezekiel Sims. Superhero movie's worst supervillain, who, in addition to being incompetent, is also, in addition to being like a horribly written, incompetent character, is also one of the most bizarrely bad performances I've ever seen. I need to know what happened, because I'm not kidding when I say that 95% of his dialogue is dubbed over. And they do this by, they either do reverse shots of him where you're seeing his back and you're hearing him talk, but the lip movements don't match at all, or even worse, the head-on shots, which I recorded an example for, because they honestly have to be seen. You need to see, I will edit that in right here.
Hello, I am Ezekiel Sims, and every night I have the same dream. The 3 girls, they try to kill me. I must kill them first. Mahaha, they are very bad.
Because you need to see it to be believed. That is what it's like. The footage I just put in with the audio that I dubbed and Jack, that's what it's like. It has to be seen to be believed. I can't even really describe it. It's just they didn't make any attempt to have his lips match. In fact, most of the time it doesn't even look like he's saying dialogue. It feels like they used the footage. So when you film a scene in a movie, you film front face, you film shot, reverse shot. So that is, you're filming the actor saying their lines, then you're filming the other actor they're speaking to, the character they're speaking to, whatever. Normally you'll switch back and forth between this. With this villain, it is an odd scenario where I feel like they used the shots of, the reaction shots of him. Like, they're either using the reverse shots from behind his head while he's talking, or it feels like they're using the reaction shots of him, or the in-between sentences shots of him, and dubbing it over and trying to pass that as if he's talking. Like, it literally looks like a ventriloquism act, where his mouth will barely be moving half the time, and you're just hearing dialogue. And let me be clear, it's not just that the ADR was, like, horribly done. The delivery is also bad. No credit will be given to the actor here. His delivery also sucked. He sounded like he was reading his lines for the first time, and also that he didn't speak English very well at the same time. I don't know what happened. I want to know so badly what happened, because clearly they changed major aspects of his script and then didn't refilm. Kirk was telling me there's a theory going around that he put on a really thick character accent when they filmed, and they decided they didn't like it at the last minute and redubbed over it, which, okay. The other thing about this villain, it's not just that he's horribly ADR'd or dubbed or just that, like, you know, all that. He also is, like, even if all that wasn't true, even if his performance wasn't this nightmarish, like, anime dub tier bad villain, like, monologue, he also is, as a character, makes no sense. So, for reference, this guy's motivation is that every night he has prophetic dreams of these 3 girls trying to kill him. And they're all in, like, superhero outfits, and they try to kill him. So he wants to kill them. Alright, clear enough. Clear enough motivation. The movie does not answer any more questions other than this. All we know about him is that he's having these dreams, and he wants to kill these girls, and that he took the spider from the Amazon and used it to give himself basically Spider-Man powers. The villain is the one with Spider-Man powers and a Spider-Man suit. It's such an odd choice. You've got, like, this evil Spider-Man crawling around the walls, and this movie very explicitly takes place in 2003, before Spider-Man exists. So it's this weird, like, there's so many weird implications to this of, like, is Spider-Man's power just from this weird Amazonian spider? What are the people in this universe gonna think when Spider-Man comes to exist and he looks like this villain guy? I also was saying that, like, apparently, my friends were saying that apparently, like, only Madame Web and the girls could see the villain, but I didn't get that at all. There's one moment where he's crawling around on the roof, and they're like, talking to cops, and they're like, don't you see that? That's the only moment that, if that information is true, that's the only moment that actually establishes that information. There's no other scene to establish that. But this movie's such a mess that maybe that was what they were going for, and I just don't know. Anyway, back to the plot, because this villain guy, the villain guy's introduced pretty early. I mean, obviously he's in the flashback, but we also get a scene. So he seduces this woman, and then he, like, has the dream, and that's how we learn about the information. And then it's revealed that this woman is NSA, and he wants the, like, facial recognition technology they have. And they try so hard to make this, like, a seductive, sexy villain scene where he's, like, caressing her face and being like, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. Or more accurately, and the audio. But it doesn't work at all. It falls so flat. It truly makes no sense. Well, and it just, like, it doesn't land. It doesn't even, like, not land in the sense of, oh, he's not that attractive, because objectively the guy playing the role is attractive. He is just a black hole of screen presence, with or without the dubbing. Like, I'm sure the original audio, he's not any better. This guy just has nothing going on. Like, to the point where I'm like, did you just pluck some guy off the street? Like, who is this actor? I guess he's been in other stuff, but, like, he is ADR or no ADR. He's giving one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a movie. To the point where I was excited when I'm saying all this bad shit about him. He was hilarious. He was so consistently terrible. And the dubbing was so consistently awful. I was so excited every time we cut back to this guy. Because the second we cut back to him, I knew I was in for a, like, all-time master class in awful scenes. There's a scene midway through the movie where Madame Web has a dream where she's interacting with him in this diner place that they were in earlier in the movie. And it is one of the most incompetently made scenes I've ever seen. The camera's jumping around everywhere, which it does the whole movie, but like, this isn't even an action scene, so what are they doing? It's you know, the standard, like, villain tries to tempt the hero off of their path scene. So he's, like, whispering in her ear and darting around her, and there's crazy lights everywhere. but he's still like horribly ADR'd, so they're like not showing his face half the time, or they are showing his face but his lips aren't moving. It's mind-boggling. It's actually mind-boggling. And and I'm focusing so much on him because he's like the most consistently, obviously bad thing in this movie, but nothing else is good either. Dakota Johnson is not good as Madam Web. She has this I don't want to be here energy throughout the whole movie, which the script kind of makes work for her character. Like, it's entertaining. It's entertaining to see this, like, palpably disinterested hero, and not, like, disinterested in a cool character arc way. You get, well more than halfway through this movie, and she's still, like, I don't really want to save you guys. I'm just gonna, like, leave and go to Peru. She goes to Peru halfway through the movie to find out more about what happened to her mother. We can't keep the plot in order. This is what happens when the bad movies are talked about. I thought we had like 30 minutes left, 20 minutes left, and then she says, "Oh yeah, Ben, take these kids," and that's how they end up with him when Peter Parker's mom is giving birth. "Ben, take these kids. I've got to go to Peru for a week." A week? Peru? For a week? No way the villain doesn't find them in that time. She was also not gone for a week. Although they keep it purposefully vague. Because the villain, the villain absolutely sucks at his job. He's literally trying to kill 3 teenage girls with no superpowers. And he has superpowers, and he can't do it. But even that being said, he has NSA, like, no way he doesn't find them there eventually. It's so silly. It's so silly. What else? What else is there? The camera work is incredible. Clearly the DP or whoever, cinematographer, has one trick, which is freaking rotate the camera around. Rotate the camera around. The whole movie. That's how all the action scenes look. It's wild. It's absolutely, it's just like, it's so visual. Clearly the idea was spin the camera around a bunch and just make the scene so visually overwhelming and that you can't see how shit the action is. And it is dynamic. Like, I'll say this, it's bad cinematography, but it's interesting cinematography. And that's a lot of this movie is, like, bad, but in really interesting ways. Her future visions are so... They don't have a good, like, way to show you, okay, she's having a future vision versus she's not. They kind of just use loud noises and blurry nonsense background, like drug trip haze, almost, but that's making it sound more consistent than it is. It really, I feel like the only true consistent marker for she's having a vision is loud noise and blur effect in the background. Like, the first time that she has a vision where she could have saved somebody from their death, but she doesn't, is almost a good scene. I think that is a scene that is well written, and it's early enough in the movie that I feel like Dakota Johnson was still trying. That being said, the scene is still not good because the editing is so bad that you truly do not know what is going on. Only at the end of the scene are you able to piece together, oh, that part that I just saw was a future vision. That was what was gonna happen. This is what is happening. It's so unclear. And not in an artistic way. It doesn't feel artistic anyway. It feels like bad filmmaking, bad editing, and bad cinematography, all coming together to make these, like, disorienting future visions that continue throughout the movie. So after she gains her powers and has that first vision, she fails to save this guy, and she just immediately is like, the future can't be changed. I'm gonna go mope at home and watch A Christmas Carol so that we can do this really, like, on-the-nose metaphor of it's the ghost of future past talking about how scary the future is while she's all sad. And then she realizes she can change the future because a bird crashes into her window and she has a vision of it. So then she opens the window and the bird flies in. And she's so shocked. She gasps so she can change, because she can change the future. It's ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. And then she has a line at the end, because this movie can't let any moment go without a weird expository line that over-explains it. After the whole scene happens and dramatic pause. It didn't die. The bird didn't die. It's yeah, we just watched the scene. We know. And then she continues to be really slow on the trigger of, how her powers work. She gets on a train, and this is when she first sees all the girls are conveniently on this subway train, and she sees them all being murdered, and she, resets time, rewatches the vision. The cinematography and editing is so bad that it's really unclear what is happening, but it seems like she basically, it takes her, 4 or 5 visions to get it that, oh yeah, something bad is about to happen. These things you're seeing, they're about to happen. You should go warn those girls. You watch her take her jacket off at the start of the vision, 6 times. It's what is going on? How are you this bad at using your powers? And then she warns them, and then mission starts. She's traveling with these girls. After that, it just becomes kind of like a chase movie. The girls are all uniquely insufferable in their own way. There's Sydney Sweeney plays a woefully miscast role, plays the shy, timid girl. And then there's 2 other actresses that I don't know the name of because they're not as well known as Sydney Sweeney, who play one plays a skater girl, and one plays a sassy girl. And Cassandra Webb encounters these girls earlier in the movie, and they make sure she encounters these girls because she'll see little scenes of them, and then they'll look at her, and the 2 characters will make eye contact for weirdly long for seemingly unrelated strangers who have no connection yet. This is before she gets her powers. They really needed to make sure the audience knew, oh, that one's important. That one's important too. It's what? So she drives them off into the woods, escaping the evil Spider-Man, and then she leaves them there. She leaves them there to go back to her house and look at the research that she has of her mom, and that's where she figures out that her mom and the guy chasing them are connected. So she goes there, and I think that's when she says, he was with my mom in the Amazon, as she sees a photo of them together. She then tries to climb a wall. It's just a little gag scene where she's like, how would you know you couldn't climb walls if you've never tried? And then she tries to climb a wall and she fails, and it's funny. In fairness, this is a moment that actually feels like it's meant to be played for comedy versus the entire rest of this movie, which does not feel like that. Meanwhile, the teen girls are bickering in the woods because part of the reason they're annoying is each of them has uniquely insufferable traits. But the writer's idea of banter between them is to just have them bicker the whole movie. It's really awesome and really cool. So they go to a diner because they're tired of hanging out in the woods because they don't think she's coming back because she was really wishy-washy about helping them. Madame Webb, everybody, our hero. They go to a diner. They're trying to lay low. Somehow they end up dancing on a table to impress, boys. It's stupid. It's also stupid. Madame Webb there's a sequence in here that could have been cool, where the girls, they're dancing on the table to Britney Spears' Toxic, because this movie takes place in 2003, and the villain shows up, and he comes after them. Madame Webb shows up right after, blah, 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 blah. Then we rewind, and we see that, okay, that whole thing was a future vision, and now she's at the place where she left them, and she's hearing the song start on the radio in the taxi cab. This whole sequence with the Toxic song is so just badly done, because you have the bones of her having to weave around this truck into oncoming traffic to get there faster, but they don't know how to film. This is a consistent problem with the mini car sequences that are in this movie. They don't know how to film it so it looks like the cars are going fast. so it looks like she's driving at 20 miles per hour behind a big truck, which is, what's really happening. But normally you'd figure out how to shoot that so it looks like they're going faster. No. And completely robbed it. And then somehow she gets there, despite this time driving a car, but in the future vision walking to this diner. Somehow she gets there later than she did last time. She gets there after the villain did and hits him with the car. And I don't even think the song plays in full. Maybe it does, but it's just like that. In a good movie, that would have been a cool, song montage. She has to save the day. That's a cool idea. She has this vision. She hears the song start, and she's like, I have till the end of the song to save them. That, in any other movie, that would be a cool scene. And even in other bad superhero movies, that would be, the standout scene in an otherwise bad superhero movie. But this movie is so incompetently made that it doesn't work. No scene in this movie works. There are scenes that almost work. There are scenes that could work in theory. Most of this movie is kind of unsalvageable, but there are scenes and parts and ideas that could work if, in a completely different context, in a different movie. So anyway, she rescues them from the diner. This is one of 2 times that she runs over the super-powered spider villain with a car. The villain who is supposed to have spidey senses, but seemingly doesn't. Because he gets got by the surprise vehicle bit twice. The second time she's driving an ambulance up a parking garage, and I didn't even realize that she was I didn't realize it was going to happen until she burst from the second floor of this building that I did not know was a parking garage to slam into the bad guy who's jumping down onto the car where Ben Parker and all of them are driving Mary Parker to the hospital. And for some reason he brings the girls with him when he should have just left them at his house. But, everyone in this movie is a dumbass, so it's fine. This is after she goes to Peru, returns from Peru with a new abilities, I guess. She gets the ability to make magic clones of herself, but she uses it once and she uses it poorly. In the final action sequence, which really just had me sitting there staring like this the whole time, just like a slight upturned smile of holy shit, this is hilariously bad. I cannot believe how bad this action scene is. They fight on top of a building. There's a giant PepsiCo sign that falls on the villain, and that's how he dies. When she first gets her powers, she has this crazy underwater sequence that was, again, making me laugh my ass off. This is what I mean when this movie never goes more than 5 minutes without something batshit insane or dumbass stupid. She has this vision of things that are going to happen. There's all these things floating around. One of them is a giant red S. Oh, S for Spider-Man! No, it's the S in the Pepsi-Cola sign that falls into the water. It doesn't... The villain doesn't even get crushed by the S. He gets crushed by the P in Pepsi, the second P. The S falls into the water where Madame Web also falls into the water at the end, and then she has to have CPR done on her by the teenagers. CPR, which she taught them earlier in the movie, in a bonding scene, I guess. They have this nice sort of found family thing going on. You could see how it would almost work, maybe, in some other version of this script. What else? Is there anything, there's probably something else that's stupid in this movie that I haven't mentioned. There's a lot of stupid stuff. The last line is Madame Web saying, the best thing. You know what's the best thing about the future? And it shows her... Oh, this is another thing to mention. The teenage girls, their super suits that you might have seen in the trailer, they only get super suits and superpowers in the villain's dream and Madame Web's, future vision at the end. They are the pure setup. They do not get powers in this movie. They do not suit up in this movie. In fact, no one suits up in this movie except the villain. The words Madame Web are never used, not even in a cheeky end of the movie, what do you call yourself now? Madame Web. No. The only, it feels like the last 2 minutes of this movie are like, okay, man, now Madame Web is an actual, like, superhero character. It's an origin story in the worst way possible, where there's, like, no action. It's supposed to be suspenseful, but it's not, because it's incompetently made. And then at the end, they give you all these teases of like, oh, well, now someday these girls will get superpowers, and then we can make movies about them. Except they're never going to, because this one bombed horribly. And so you get, like, a shot of all 3 girls, and then Madame Web's, like, force ghost guiding them. And they're all in, like, bad costumes. And then Dakota Johnson, Madame Web, she says, this is the last line of the movie, what's the best thing about the future? Ba-na-na-na-na-na, the music's swelling. It hasn't happened yet. And I just, like every other bad line, I just go, oh, come on. And I just start laughing my ass off as the credits roll. What the fuck? What kind of a last line is that? The best thing about the future is that it hasn't happened yet? Come on, what? And that's probably not the dumbest line in the movie. There's so many bad, terrible, awful lines of dialogue in this movie that it's not, like, you can't even remember them all. You can't even go over them all. I know I've described the whole plot of the movie. Spoilers for Madame Web. It's still worth seeing. If you don't want to go buy a movie theater ticket, I understand. Watch this movie when it comes out on streaming. Make it a night with friends. Drinking game with friends. Drink every time the villain is ADR'd. Drink every time you, like, cringe. You, like, physically cringe at a line of dialogue. Drink every time they say web. They say web a decent amount. Probably, now that I think about it, maybe the only line of the villains that I can think of that I don't think was ADR'd is when his little girl in the chair that helps him is telling him the woman who rescued them. It's Cassandra Webb. And he stops and he goes, "Did you say Webb?" Because he's realized that it's the daughter of the woman, but it's just, like, it's delivered so bad. It's so bad, dude. We were all just, like, standing outside the movie theater for, I think, an hour after the movie ended, just, like, going over everything that was bad. That would have been a better review than this, honestly. I just didn't have a camera with me. It's just, like, going on for an hour of, like, that was stupid. That was stupid, too. That was stupid. And I'm sure I've forgotten half the stupid things, because it's constant. It's constant, like, dog shit writing, dog shit cinematography, dog shit acting. The directing maybe wasn't that bad. But also I feel like it was, because the actors, when all the actors are doing that poorly, it's like, I think the director could not say this. The director directed one of the best episodes of Succession Season 1, the party episode. So it's like, clearly they have talent, but maybe not for movies. Maybe not for movies. And also, I don't know what director could have saved this, like, script. And this, like, edited. And even if this movie was well-directed and well-shot, the editing was so bad that it would have made it appear as if it was poorly shot and poorly directed. Like, it is unbelievably bad. I recommend everyone watch it on streaming or in theaters if you can. It's the ultimate so bad it's good movie. To go back to the Fear cast, that's why I'm calling this a sort of unofficial Fear thing, is because this has entered the ranks of, if we were gonna do a Fear cast episode that was just re-watching all our favorite, like, terrible movies, this would be in that episode, along with probably Cats and, like, I Am Number 4 and maybe something else I haven't think of. This would be in that lineup, even though we haven't officially talked about it on the Fearcast. It would be in that lineup because it's a peak bad, fear-inducing, fascinatingly bad piece of movie making that I recommend everyone go see. Web connects them all. some would say that this movie was quite beautiful in its terribleness. That's my review for Madame Web, everybody. We'll see what the next terrible dog shit cape shit movie I review is, because this I feel like this is cape shit does not get any shittier than this. And I think this Madame Web may be the marking point of the last dying breath of a dying, like, the ultimate dying genre movie. The ultimate awful movie of a dying genre, I think. Yeah, Madame Web. Her web connects us all.